This is Dr. Herbert Harris, and this is Success Mentorship Call number 154. Wow, we've been going at this for a while. 154. And our topic for today is be honest with yourself. And the reason we chose this topic is that, if we look at each week as we move along, we like to pick topics that I think are very, very relevant to our progress through this year as we work hard to create our year for success, our incredible year for great things to happen. Last week we were talking about making a new start, and we talked about, is your why big enough, some of our previous talks. But the idea of being honest with yourself is really critical. That is, you might say, ground zero in this whole success journey, who you are and what you are about. I'd like to open with a quote, and it's a quote from Charlie Emery. And it's really, I love the quote. It says this, it says, "Nothing makes you more vulnerable than your refusal to be honest with yourself about what you want." I'll read that again. Nothing makes you more vulnerable than your refusal to be honest with yourself about what you want. That's a powerful thought, folks, because if you're not honest with yourself, then we're literally starting a journey. It's like having the wrong address in our GPS and having the wrong location, the wrong starting point in our GPS, and we literally confuse our journey. So before going into this, let us do our meditation so that we can prepare ourselves for the message for the day. So just sit straight up in your seat, put your feet flat on the floor, put your hands palm down on your knees, close your eyes, and take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it. Let it out slowly. Take a deep breath. Hold it. Let it out slowly. I am at peace with myself. Let us affirm that together. I am at peace with myself. And as this peaceful state sinks in, we are open, receptive, and ready to learn. Let us say that together. I am open, receptive, and ready to learn. Once more. I am open, receptive, and ready to learn. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. All right. This is a topic I think is very timely, because when we find ourselves, as we move along our success journey, when we find ourselves not where we really want to be, I guarantee you that most of us on this call, and many people in the world, when they assess their present situation today, right now, where they are, that there are a lot of people that say, I thought I'd be further along. I'd certainly like to be in a different place. And so what do I have to do to be further along, to be in that different place, to be in the place that I really want to be? One of the keys is to recognize that it's about alignment, that we were put here on this planet for a purpose. And as long as we live our lives in accordance with that purpose and the vibration of that purpose, all is well. Everything works fine. But when we get out of alignment, in other words, when things happen that take us away from our true purpose, which we may or may not be clear on at any particular time, that's another issue. But whenever things take us away from our true purpose, we don't get the results that we desire. And so when we look at that, one of the realizations that we have to make is that, and this is a you might say an absolute realization, is this, that we are where we are because of the actions we take, the decisions we make, and the people we permit to come into our lives. Let's break it down a little more, a little clearer. We are where we are because of how we think, how we feel, what we do, and who we do it with. Let me tell you, folks, if we look at all the philosophy in life, and when we say this is the real deal, the real truth is we are where we are because of what we think, how we feel, what we do, and who we do it with. So if we look at life as we have this success GPS, we have this internal GPS that operates like our regular GPS. We have a starting location, we put in a destination, and then the GPS gives us a step-by-step, turn left, turn right, a series of instructions that take us from where we are to where we want to be. But think about this for a moment. Suppose your GPS was not functioning properly and it did not determine where you were properly. It always says, in your GPS, it says allow the device to determine your location. Well, suppose the location that is determined is not correct. Then all of the instructions given in the step-by-step direction to your goal is not correct. In other words, you're starting from an erroneous point, a place that is not accurate. And so that is what is happening many times when we look at where we are in our lives and we're not getting the things that we want. And especially when we keep failing over and over and over. I guarantee many of you, Coach, thank you for joining us. Lurley, all right. Wafar, all right. Ron, thank you so much for joining us. That when you experience repetitive failure, repetitive disappointment, whenever things seem to just, no matter what you do, they're not going the way you want them to go, that's a good sign that your GPS, your who you are, may not be accurate. And so how do we act on this? Number one, there's certain very profound steps. Step one is to take responsibility for whatever it is. That if we're right here, if the things that are going on in our lives are not what we wanted, if we're not happy, if we're not getting the results that we want, then take responsibility for it. That we are where we are because of our thoughts, our feelings, the things we do, and the people we do it with. So once we take responsibility for it, we can fix it. If you can imagine life to be a great symphony, and you're listening to this symphony, and it sounds like somebody is out of tune. It's very easy to try to say, well, I think the oboes are out of tune. I think the trumpets are out of tune. I think the harp is out of tune. Guess what, though? In that symphony of life, you cannot fix the harp. You cannot fix the horns. The one person that you can deal with in the symphony of life is you. And so when you take responsibility for whatever it is, and you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to play on tune. I'm going to play in tune. I'm going to play at the proper beat. I'm going to do what I have to do to make the symphony of life the way it should be. So that's that first step, to take responsibility. Whatever it is, you did it. The positive side of that, though, is if it's to be, it's up to me. That's a powerful vibration. That's a powerful affirmation. Let's say that together. If it's to be, it's up to me. One more time. If it's to be, it's up to me. Once we assume that posture, then we've literally taken control of our lives, of our affairs, of all the things that we deal with now to go forward. So that's step one. Step two, and this is a profound step, realize that we lie. You know, I saw a video of a child, a baby, and that had not yet been, I guess, in the process of being potty trained. And the mom says to the baby, "Who did the boo-boo did you do the boo-boo in the corner?" And there was boo-boo over in the corner. The baby goes, "No, I didn't do it. I didn't do it." So he said, "Well, how did the baby learn how to lie? He can't even talk barely." Well, there's a part of us that always seeks approval. You know, I think we learn it maybe as children that if we cry, if we make noise, then we get a hug and we get kisses. And so there's a part of us that makes us do whatever is necessary to make people like us. And it really becomes almost a very subconscious process in that we don't actively say, "I'm going to lie about this situation so that people will like me." It's just that you just do it. Wow, if it's to be, it's up to me. Thank you. So you just do it. And that's a tragic thing. That's an interesting situation because you'll find your life living according to somebody else's expectations. And you'll find that you are lying to others. Somebody says, "Are you all right?" Yeah, I'm all right. Why? But you know inside you're not all right. Why would you say it? Well, you don't want people to look at you like this person is out of whack. You know, is everything okay? Yes, everything, and everything's not okay because you want the other person to like you, to think that everything is fine, that all is well. And that's tragic. Even worse, it's terrible to lie to yourself. You know, when we find ourselves in situations where we're not excited about those situations and we deny, you know, I'm in a bad relationship, but I'm going to deny that it's a bad relationship. I'm going to pretend that everything is all right. You're lying to yourself. When you are on your success journey, we lie about ourselves, lie to ourselves to often perpetuate the very condition that we don't want to be in. We can be in a job that we hate, and we lie to ourselves and say it's not so bad. And in any event, in 40 years, I'm going to get a pension. And we know in these days and times, that's definitely not guaranteed. And so once we recognize that we do lie to ourselves, we can fix that. Anytime we have self-talk and we hear ourselves saying things, we have to analyze. Kenya says, if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anybody else. That's powerful. If you lie to yourself, then literally you project that lie onto the world. So on these two foundations, we look now and we say, okay, I am where I am. I'm not excited about it. The third step is to revisit our why. There's always a why. Why do you want to be rich? Why do you feel the need to be loved? Why do you want to get a new job? In other words, when we look at the reasons we set out, our goals that we set out with for this year, look at them and ask this question: who is the why behind the I? Who is the why behind the I? And what do I mean? When we look at where we are right now, we have to ask that question. Well, who is it? I want to, let's just look, financial stability. I want financial independence. I want to create wealth. I want to be a millionaire. Why do you want financial independence? Well, I want financial independence because I'm afraid that I won't be liked if I don't have resources. Why do you feel you wouldn't be liked if you don't have resources? Well, because inside, I'm not a likable person. That, people who are attracted to brand names often say, why do you feel better wearing a dress or a jacket or a suit with somebody else's name on it? And it's because they want to be liked by people, and they feel that whoever they are may not be enough. And so they want to be identified with Tommy Hilfiger or whoever. So, well, why do I feel that? Why do I feel that I have to be somebody else? I have to do something else for people to like me. Well, I feel that way because I don't feel that I'm likable. Oh, well, why don't you feel you're likable? Well, as a child, or every relationship I've been in, people eventually hurt me. They don't like me. They don't care about me. Okay, well, why is it you think people don't care about you? And you continue this process and may get back to the why behind wanting to have a lot of wealth is that you don't want that feeling of hunger that maybe as a child, a friend of mine was telling me, I'd gone to visit and I opened her refrigerator and there was so much stuff in it, you couldn't even put in a glass of water. And I said, wow, you have enough food for the world. She said, yes. She said, as a child, I was hungry. We missed so many meals, many nights I went to bed hungry, and I promised myself I will never be hungry again. And her way of dealing with that was to have a full refrigerator, always, at all times. And so when we start to question this why behind what we say we want, why do I want wealth? Why do I want to be in a good relationship? Why do I need to be in a good relationship? Well, you need to be in a good relationship because there's certain harmonic truths that you can't find by yourself. The mastermind principle, when two or more gathered on one accord, I am among them, the making power. So I need to be in a relationship because I need to be able to touch that kind of power. If I'm in a relationship with another person, a personal relationship, I know that the two of us are much better together. So when we start to go behind the why for that, the why might be that you operate better when somebody else is in your life. You feel better about yourself and there are people around who care about you. So this process, this third step of this fourth step of looking at your why, of asking why behind the who. Why do I want wealth? Why do I need good relationships? Why must I change my habits? This gives you now a diagnostic approach. It's like recalibrating your GPS now. Let me figure out where I really am so that my starting point will be valid to determine where I want to go. The fifth step is to really, I call it to revisualize your goals, to see them as though you had already achieved them. You see, that's a powerful process because if you're not where you want to be at this very moment, then seeing the way you would like your life to be, seeing it and feeling it, and the spiritual principle says to visit the promised land, and the promised land is whatever you want your life to be. To visit the promised land, walk the width and breadth of it. In other words, to get the feeling of that which you want. And so now when you get the feeling of that which you want, interpreted in terms now of who you really are, interpreted in terms of that honest approach to who you really are, it sets you up in a position now to go to that next step. Once you see who you want to be, once you've recalculated, once you've seen and feel your life the way it needs to be, the way you desire it to be. I think Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at the same level of consciousness that created it. And it is at this point that you have a very profound choice. Seek help. If you've been knocking at the door to success and it's not opening, if you've been working hard at a particular business and it's not happening, if you've been in a relationship and done everything you know how to do to make it work and it's not working, get help. Once you're clear that this is where you want to be, once you're clear on the why, that I really want this, I really need this, this is when I revisualize my goals, when I revisualize my life, when I see my promised land, this is exactly how I want it to be, then it's time to get help. And see, your ego works against that. You know, they often say that every great athlete, every great achiever has a coach. Michael Jordan had a coach. Why would he need a coach? He's the greatest basketball player that ever lived. Muhammad Ali had a coach, somebody to guide him and point out those things about him that he needed to do to be the great one. And this is a step that many of us get to. It's like almost like a block sometimes, that our ego really hates to be subdued. Our ego has this desire always to have the answer. It may be the wrong answer. It may be an answer based on incorrect assumptions, but our ego always wants to validate itself. And so this sixth step is often the one that's the most challenging, because it's saying, it's a part of in the mastermind process, there's a point where you say, I surrender. When I was a young man at a point in my life, I was blessed many times to be a high flyer. I mean, I got out of college, I went on to do other things, and I graduated. I mean, you name it, I did it. And I came to a point in my life where everything was failing, where nothing was going right, where it seemed like if I touched it, it turned to dust. And I got so discouraged that I did what we all do sometimes. I called my mama. That was the only person that I trusted enough to be frank with. And see, that's important. When you start seeking help, one of the worst things you can do is seek help from the wrong people, from people who are jealous of you, from people who are not qualified to give you that assistance. So when you start seeking help, get somebody you trust, get somebody who cares about you, who loves you, get somebody who's been where you want to go. Get somebody who's accomplished things on their own so they understand the battle. One of my teachers said, if I want to learn how to fly, I want to learn how to fly, not just from a guy who knows how to fly, but I want to learn how to fly from a man who knows how to fly, who's crashed and burned and flown again. I want to know the whole story. Anyway, I went to my mother and I said, Mom, can I come home? And my mother said, nope. I rented your room. Somebody's staying here. She and my aunt didn't like, they got a college student to stay there. And so she said, I can't come home. She said, you're going to have to figure it out for yourself, Herbert. Man, but maybe that was what I needed to hear. Her suggestion, I said, well, give me a suggestion, Mom. What do you think I should do? She says, call your uncle and ask him to give you a job. You know, the ego is amazing. What did I start doing? I started saying, well, he doesn't like me. My uncle has never had anything good to say about me. He thinks I've frittered my life away. He thinks, he had all these negative thoughts about me. You know, that's one of the spiritual processes, folks. When you start to make that breakthrough through your ego, to where you make that sincere identification with your source, with something that can help move you to the next level, there's a part of you that says no. Like when Moses, when the Creator, when God said to Moses, go to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let my people go, Moses started making excuses. I stutter. Nobody will listen. I don't have the power. All these things. Well, it's a part of our psyche to do that. And so when my mother said, when I gave all those excuses that my uncle didn't like me, she said, well, I hear what you're saying. She said, go make him give you a job. Now that was a profound, how can you make somebody do something for you who you don't even think they like you? that made me think. And I said, how can I make somebody help me? Well, I can make somebody help me by helping them. So when I went to my uncle this time, when I went the first time and asked him for a job, he told me to get out. And I mean, he had a string of expletives that would make a sailor blush. But when I came to him this second time, I said, look, what do you need to have done for you to make your business better? And it's amazing when I asked him that, well, what do you need to help you make your business better? He said, I need somebody to collect these rents. He owned a lot of property, but he was a big time attorney, and he didn't have anybody to really collect the rents and really properly manage the properties. He was doing it before he'd go into the office. He'd go and get the men worked up to do repairs. And he said, that's what I need. So guess what? I said, well, let me do it. Let me collect the rents. Let me manage the properties. His whole countenance changed. He gave me a job. Now, I could have gotten upset because of course he wanted to underpay me. But my mother said, make him do it. And so I said, look, let me just get my foot in the door. So whatever he offered to pay me was less than I was worth. I know that. But it got me in the door. So I say to you today, who is it in your life that can help you, that can coach you, that can help you move to the next level that you have a blockage against going to? If you can break through that blockage, you can get the help you need. And then finally, the seventh key to being honest with yourself is to recognize that it's an evolutionary process. Each of us is like an onion, and we keep peeling away different levels of doubt, different levels of fear, different levels of misunderstanding. We literally, this growth process of who we are and who we will become is a continuous process, and it continues until we make our transition. I'm a firm believer that as we follow this growth process more and more, that when we make our transition, it determines the level at which you make your vibrational transition to the next elevation of the expression of who you are, to the next expression of your purpose, of the purpose of your being. So to conclude what we're saying today, being honest with yourself requires that you take responsibility for whatever it is, for your life and affairs. Whatever it is, you did it, but if it's to be, it's up to me. Number two, realize that we have the capacity to deceive ourselves, to lie to ourselves, and to be aware of that so that we keep ourselves on track and in harmony. Number three, if we're not where we want to be right now, look at our why, revisit our goals to see how far off track we are, to see our progress to date. Number three. Number four, that was number three. Number four, to find the who behind the I. That if we have tried everything we know and it's not working, we need to look at who we are, to be honest with ourselves, to look at our thoughts, to look at our emotions, to look at our habits, to look at our relationships, and see what we need to change. Number five, to see our goals, however we recalculate them, as though they were already achieved. See our life, visualize our lives exactly the way we want it to be, and get into the feeling nation of that life. Number six, to get help. That you will always need somebody to help you to the next level. The mastermind principle says that when two or more gather on one accord, I am among them. To access the power of transformation, you need to find other human beings with whom you can relate and grow. And then finally, number seven, to recognize that you are an evolutionary process. You are always a work in progress. That life is never final. It's always about growth. The greatest evidence of life itself is growth. And as long as you're living, you should be growing to be what you want to be, to do what you want to do, and to have whatever you want to have, always knowing that the best is yet to come. When you can do this, when you can be honest with yourself, then you can take yourself to that point where your life is such that you can say, this time it's me in the winner's circle. This time it's me who gets the prize. This time I've really, really made it. This time my dream is realized. Always knowing that the best is yet to come. And so it is. Whew. Okay. Wow. With those of you on Facebook and on Instagram, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Please share this message with others, with the people you care about. I hope and know that it will be a blessing to you, that you have the power to be, do, and have anything you desire. Be sure to get a copy of our book, The 12 Universal Laws of Success, because it can be your recipe for change. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Be blessed, always knowing that the best is yet to come. Good morning, good morning, good morning, all. Let me open the mic. Let's see. You can unmute your mics. Allow them to unmute yourselves. I think everybody. Good morning, Mary. How are you today?
Blessed and highly favored.
Excellent, excellent. Any thoughts on today's message?
For me, yes. You talked about realizing the why behind the I. Some things I do because I think I'm pleasing myself when I'm actually pleasing others. And when I look back at it, I'm actually displeased with myself. And so I have to reach that point of figuring out why I do what I do when I do what I do.
Wow.
So
that's profound.
That was important to me.
That's profound, Mary. Thank you for sharing. Wow. Yes. Yes. Any other thoughts or feedback or questions? You can unmute yourselves.
Morning, Dr. Harris. How you doing today?
I'm great, Dr. Rogers, and you?
Great, man. I'm well. You got me thinking about, purpose like a pair of shoes. And if you go to get your new pair of shoes, you got to measure your foot. And if you get the wrong measurement, the shoes won't fit. So being honest with yourself is that notion of, measuring your situation. Are you where you should be? And, are you on purpose? How does it align with your soul's innermost desires is what comes to mind for me.
Thank you, Doc.
Powerful. Yeah. Hey, look, not only is it measure your shoe size, but sometimes listening to your message be stepping on my toes a little bit.
Well, Doc, sometimes I step on my own toes. That's tough. I hear you. Yeah, it's interesting. I like that shoe analogy because, man, when your shoes don't fit, your whole life has changed. You can't. Your situation. And when your shoes don't fit, it's indicative of other things. I have these toenails that are like hooves. Man, I could have been a horse based on my toenails, you know?
Right.
And so I can't, they're too strong, too thick for me to cut. So I actually have to go to the foot doctor every couple of months and have them cut. And when
Yeah.
they're not cut, I cannot wear certain shoes. it, it hurts so much. You can't walk with one or two steps. And so, wow, when you're not honest with yourself, you know, like you got some size 10 feet and you're trying to put them in some size 9 shoes.
Not gonna work.
Yes, yes,
And and it's like wearing the wrong shoes to the wrong event.
yes.
You go to a nice event on a nice boat, and you turn around, you wearing some scrubs or some sneakers, as opposed to it being in your dress shoes, and you're just out of place because you got the wrong pair of shoes on at the wrong time.
And it can make you feel out of place.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Tyrone, how are you today? Can you unmute yourself? Okay. All right. Miss Sandra, welcome this morning. Let's see, Tyrone, you're talking, but I can't hear you. Let's see. Let me see if I can ask you to unmute. Hey, Miss Sandra, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
Did you have any thoughts this morning? There we go, Tyrone. I see you now.
Yes. How you doing?
I'm great today. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes, I'll be succinct. I really admired your teaching style, and of course, more so your subject matter. And it really has really helped me. I've been in business for over 12 years, and you never have enough coaching, enough good advice. And I ordered your book, the yellow book with the
Yes.
12, what is it, the freedom, I forget the title now.
Yes.
The
The
12
12
universal.
universal
Yes,
laws.
yes. And I actually did several videos on it on Facebook Live. So I share your information and subject matter all the time. And I just say this: as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And of course, paraphrasing as a woman as well. So the way we think has everything to do with our success. But thank you so
Absolutely.
much. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Brother Tyrone. Thank you. Thank you. Miss Sandra, you wanted to add something?
About the analogy that Doctor gave regarding the shoe, that's quite prevalent with women who want to wear a size 9 and they have a 10, and you have a tendency to see them before they finish the event, their shoes are in the corner someplace. So that's a great analogy there. But going back to being honest with yourself, so many people do not accept the fact of honesty if it deals with them. People will lie, they will dodge, they will do whatever necessary to get away from the honesty of themselves. And lying is one of the big issues of being honest, is that you will lie to get yourself out of trouble, to get yourself away from relationships, to get yourself away from the job or whatever. So being honest is a characteristic that people should have, but so many times individuals will not possess that characteristic.
Wow. Thank you, Miss Sandra. Thank you. All right. I wanted to, yes, yes, Mary.
Sandra brought up something that, and you brought it up earlier, and that is deceiving ourselves. And it's
Yes.
not necessarily us just deceiving ourselves, it's sometimes other people trying to deceive you. And you can see in them and know that what they're saying is not the truth. But how do you deal with that? I mean, without breaking or that fragile ego or that some people have, because they're already so fragile that they can't deal with things. And I'm talking about in particular alcoholism are drug addicts, and they've overcome the drug addict debt or the alcoholism or their addiction, but yet they still deceive themselves about other things,
Mm.
and not wanting to move forward and actually take action.
Mary, that's a profound question. And when you ask, Sandra had a friend once who to ask for a honest evaluation of her situation. You know, she was a kind of a semi-public figure, and I think had gotten to that point in her life where she was trying to make a breakthrough and it just wasn't happening. And so she asked Sandra to help her. And when Sandra was honest with her and told her the truth, the lady had not spoken to Sandra again for years. Okay. I mean, for years. It was like, I mean, we were stunned, but it sort of shows that other people have such a wall around them sometimes that even though they may ask for truth, as you were saying, Mary, sometimes you try to be tactful, you try to be,
Mhm.
you know, I don't want to hurt your feelings, you know, whatever that is. And when you don't, you really have to make an assessment of that person. But you know what's very interesting is although she literally terminated the relationship with Sandra and myself, 10 years later, she is a manifestation of the advice given. Okay. In other words, and she's reached out to us again now, and we speak, and we spent some time together. So it took her a while to get by it. You know, it could have at first it kind of it made us feel bad. Like, man, we really like broken off a very productive relationship that had been years in the making over just a simple statement of truth. But she really needed to hear it. And so now looking at her 10 years later, she has gotten the message. So if we had not told her, it could have been a whole nother outcome. So I guess to answer your question, Mary, you we have to don't let other people force us to be dishonest about our thoughts and our feelings. We may have to be tactful. Okay. And you remember that movie, and the guy said, "You can't handle the truth." And the fellow said, "Tell me the truth." One of those military pictures. And he said, "You can't handle the truth." And sometimes if you, and you can kind of feel it inside, but you may not. Like Sandra and I did not, in my mind, I thought that that might happen, but I just thought that the relationship over the years, why would they ask if they didn't really want to know? They really weren't seeking truth. They were seeking validation for what they had. They were very accustomed to people saying, "Oh yeah, you look great. Everything is good. I love what you're doing." And that was what she was seeking. And when she didn't get it, it really transformed her. So I think to be true to ourselves, we have to be truthful, but tactful. And sometimes we have to make that judgment call of saying, you know what, I can't really speak on that now, you know. And that, I mean, that's an answer too. Sometimes it may not be one that you want, but if your perception is that it would hurt so badly, that may be the way to handle it. I can't speak on that right now, because what it does to the person, it says to them that there's something that you want to tell them that you don't feel you can tell them. And that may lead them to bringing a realization. You know, sometimes you come back to a person who did not necessarily tell you what you wanted to hear, but you come back and you say, you know, one day you said A, B, C, and D. Can I ask you, you know, what was your thinking on that? You know, I've evolved to a point now where my life is doing this. What was your thinking on that? One of my good friends in network marketing years ago, I was complaining. I was saying to him, "How do you make this money?" He that particular month, his check was $500,000. I felt like totally, my little $20,000 check, I'm like, man, I ain't even in the game, you know? And so I asked him, I said, well, what do you do to make that kind of money? What can I do to make that kind of money? He said, you got to work harder. And I mean, that was like very cold. Like, what do you mean I got to work harder? I'm working hard. And you know, the mind, when I say we lie to ourselves, my mind started automatically validating everything I had done. You know, what do you mean work hard? I'm making $20,000 a month. I'm one of the top producers in the company. That's where my mind went. But he looked at me and he said, hey, you're not working hard enough. That's all. You just got to work hard if you want to make this kind of money. And I could have been turned off by him. I said, well, what do you mean work hard? How hard do you work? You know, maybe I had a wrong frame of reference. He says, I make 150 calls a day. I'm patting myself on the back with both hands for making 20 calls a day. And he's telling me he's making 150 calls a day. And I'm glad I did not let him turn me off, because I could have just said to him, you know, like, yeah, well, okay, man. But I said, well, how do you do that? How do you make 150 calls a day? I'm thinking like there are only 8 hours in a day, like 9 to 9, 12 hours at most. He said, no, he says, I call almost 20 hours a day. How do you do that? And he explained to me something I never thought of before. He said, well, you know, we're an international company. He said, well, at 6 a.m., I start making calls. Well, how are you gonna make calls at 6 a.m.? Who are you calling? He said, I'm calling Germany, because 6 a.m. in America is like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Germany. And so he literally used his call day from 6 a.m. when he started calling Germany. So by 9 o'clock when I started calling, he already had 3 hours of calls in. Okay. And then he proceeded to say he adjusted his calls to the time zones, and he could work all the way up to 12 o'clock, because 12 o'clock midnight on the East Coast is 9 o'clock in California. So he would literally call from 6 a.m. in the morning to 12 midnight. And if he really felt bodacious, he would call afterwards and start calling Hawaii. Okay. So if I had not asked the question, if I had been turned off by him, you know, and it was the thought of like, I don't want to hear this with me. I didn't work hard enough. I'd have never learned what he had to say. So I don't know if that helps your question, man. Roundabout, but
I think it does. It's already a delicate situation because that person and I, it's a family member, have had some issues before.
yeah,
And they just don't ever want to seem to move to the next level and expect handouts all the time.
yeah. Well, you know, I think one of the realizations, realize people are committed to who they are. You know, they're not committed to who we want them to be, or even who we see them to be. You know, in marketing, we often see people through the potential that we think they have, but they operate based on the potential that they think they have. And a lot of times they don't match up.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions or thoughts?
Take us through, Dr. Harris, a coaching situation where, because you talked about how Muhammad Ali had a coach and Michael Jordan had a coach. Take us through a coaching situation where the intent is to get people to be more honest with themselves. Like, you know, I guess when I think of sports, I think of how you have to run wind sprints in basketball to get your wind up. So then when it comes to running up and down the court like a guy like Michael Jordan did, you had to do that because you could do it because you've been doing those wind sprints, right?
Right.
You could jump high because you practice, you know, your verticals with weighted boots, you know, weighted shoes and ankle weight and all that. So in terms of getting people to be at one with God, to be, you know, on point with telling the truth, how do you get them to go from wherever they are to that space? Is that drop of a dime, or is it takes exercises to get them there?
Well, that's a great question, Doc. And from a coaching perspective, very often you ask the player, it's like, what do you think you need? You know, based on your performance, what do you think your strong points and your weak points are? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, a coach also sees a bigger picture. You know, like if you compare an Allen Iverson to a Michael Jordan. Now, Allen Iverson was a guy who couldn't be coached. Allen's attitude was he was the best shooter on the planet, and he couldn't be coached. And so a coach he would never accept coaching. So no one ever he could never have the idea that how you act impacts the whole team. And that was one of the things a coach might say, well, put you in context. Michael, you're a great player, but it's beyond playing. That you are also a symbol. That what you do, your team is going to drill into your rhythm. So if you're here in the gym at 5 a.m. shooting free throws, and then in the stats it says you're a 95% free throw shooter, guess what the team is going to do? they're gonna come down and shoot some free throws to get better. And so I think coaches see a bigger picture and guide by asking, what do you think you could do to impact the team more, Michael? You all want to what's important to you, the stats or a championship team? Michael says a championship team. Well, are you willing to do what it takes to make a championship team? Of course I am. What does it take? And then a coach can kind of lay out those kind of things, but it's always, that spiritual principle, seek and you shall find. Anytime you try to teach something to somebody that they don't want to learn, it's generally going to be unproductive. And you look at Iverson. Iverson was one of the greatest players ever, but his team never won. And he created such a vibration with the team that the others didn't want to practice. Like, why should we practice? And he doesn't practice. He's making 3 times as much as we make. And so it's that, I think the more important thing about coaching is submission of the ego to say, I don't know. I need help. I want to move to the next level. What do I need to do? And to say it to a person who can give you the comments. They don't go get a coach who never played the game. they get a coach that they trust and believe in. And once that trust and belief is there, then they can seek and accept the training and the information.
So basically, you're saying excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
Until they reach that point of realizing that they need to have that help and that they're ready to accept that help, you can beat your head against the wall trying to give it to them, but it will never happen. They will always see themselves through rose-colored glasses,
Yes.
where everything is perfect and exactly the way they want it, until they come to that realization that my life is not moving, I'm not going forward, therefore I need to make a change.
Yes. Woo.
And on the coaching thing, Doc, you made me think of how Michael Jordan has won 6 rings, and I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I think actually has 7. Bill Russell has 13 rings. Then when you look at a coach like Phil Jackson, who won them as a player and as a coach in multiple cities, it's like successful coaches, they played the game and they won, but they also have a flexible mind and they have clues that they can impart upon different team members to make sure those teams win in different spaces. I'm just thinking of the basketball now.
Yeah. Well, Phil Jackson was, as he said, he was a Zen man. He was very cerebral, and he did meditation. He did all these kind of things with the
books.
Yeah, Tyrone. Yeah, books. Yeah, he was very. Phil Jackson was like, develop the whole man. That the more you know in every area, the better you are. The greater your level of exposure, the greater your capacity to perform. That it's not just a linear level; it's a harmonic level. And so the greater you can fill in, the greater the picture.
Yeah. Can I add?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Yes, another good example of what you're talking about with the coaching is a former coach named John Wooden of UCLA. He had a pyramid of success, and he was one of the most successful college coaches of all time. But he really concentrated more on the character because really, when you think about the talent of professional players, it's really not that much of a difference in talent.
Mhm.
But it's the mental, and that's what made Michael Jordan stand apart and some of the real greats. But John Wooden, if you Google him and look at his pyramid of success, he remind his format reminds me a lot of yours, Dr. Herbert Adams.
Yeah. He was a great coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, folks, it's almost 9 o'clock. I know Miss Sandra has another meeting. Thank you so
Yep.
much for being here. What a group. I love you all. Thank you so much.
Love you too.
All right. Have a great, magnificent week. See you next week. Same time, same station.
Hey,
Yes.
guess what?
Blessed.
Is the
Bye-bye.
what yet to come, Dr. Harris?
Huh?
What's yet to come?
The best
The best.
Yeah. to
Yes,
come.
yes.
Yes. All right.